This is again review, multi-step. The number one things we've been working on are the open closed circles. Which one is which, right? We got open closed circles are going to be the equal to, right? And open is going to be less than, greater than, less than. We know if you divide by a negative, that switches the sign. That was from yesterday as well. So anytime you divide or multiply by a negative, right, you will switch the inequality sign. That's from yesterday. Just be careful that you don't switch it with every negative. So even if I have like a negative on the right side, to solve this one, I divide by positive 2. So there's no switching of the sign. So that's sometimes a mistake where people want to switch anytime they have a negative at all. But it's only when it's underneath. Okay? It's only when the negative is underneath. Okay? And that's just one of those things. Once you get used to solving everything, that's one of those things you go back and check on your quiz because it's a common mistake because it's such a small thing. Okay? Just be careful for that. Anything else from before?
What about it if you're wrong? You decide.
Which one are you talking about?
Right.
Left or right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. So.
Alright, we'll talk. Okay, so what we want to do is last night you solved a bunch of two-step equations like this. Right? So we're getting really good at this. We did a Khan Academy for today on this. So we want to solve this as much as possible. So when we get down to these multi-steps, the goal is that we get to a simpler problem like in two-step. So I just want to go over some of the first steps that you do. You can see here it says only do the first step of combining like terms. Only do the first and second steps, distributing and combining like terms. Because the idea is if you do those properly, it's just going to turn into a nice two-step inequality that you already know how to solve. So on these, you want to look at one side at a time. So like on this, you want to look only at this and say, can I simplify anything here? Right? Can I do anything with -2 and add 5b? No, because one's a variable, one's not. And then do the same thing on the other side. So I'm not adding, subtracting both sides or anything yet. First thing I want to do is look at, can I combine anything that's on the same side? So here you can see that there are two numbers. So I need to combine those before I begin the problem. Before I add, subtract to both sides, that's going to be the first step. Okay, I want to take the 1, I want to take the -3, simplify that. Everything else stays the same. So you got to have a little bit of patience. You don't want to start with I'm going to do this to both sides, I'm going to do that to both sides. Just take whatever's on the same side and combine it first. So 1 minus 3 is -2. That's the first step. Okay, don't add 3, subtract 1 on both sides or anything. Notice how this is a positive 1. I didn't subtract 1. I just combined them. I just pretended like -6b was there. I just did 1 minus 3. They're on the same side. So I'm going to go down the left column here just to practice it. Okay. So same thing here. If I eliminate, if I don't look at the left side, the right side cannot be simplified at all. So can't do anything there. If I don't look at the right side, I have 2 numbers on the left, so I got to simplify those 2 numbers. Just do 5 minus 3 and put a 2 there. First, that's the first thing. Take the 5 minus 3 and just rewrite it as plus 2. And everything else stays exactly the same. So you got to have a little bit of patience. I want to jump right into doing this to both sides, getting that on both sides, dividing on both sides. That comes later. Okay? That's the last step. So this kind of stuff up here, that's going to turn into eventually this, where you subtract 1 on both sides, divide both sides by 2. That's going to be later in the problem. The first step is just setting it up to get to that point. Yes. Yeah. Just practice the first part.
On 2, 4, or like on 2, like you can combine any of them.
Yeah, so on 2 is a good example. You can see you can't simplify anything here, and you can't simplify anything here. So that's already simplified for this problem. The next step would be solving. Okay, So part of it is knowing when you can simplify. So some you will have to, some not. Okay, don't try to simplify on every single problem because that's not what's happening. You got to take it case by case. All right, good question. Let's go to the distributive property ones. Okay. Look at these two. Now, the most common mistake on the test that we just had, you guys already seen your test and looked at, did corrections. But the most common mistake was probably something like this. Okay? And it comes down to just a very basic question. What number is in front of the parentheses here? That's the number one mistake. People look at this and they say 5 instead of -5. So when they do this part, they do 5 times -2 and they get -10 when it should be +10 because it's -5 times -2. So just know that's the most common mistake, is recognizing that this is a -5. Yes, it's a -5, but it's also a negative. So just be careful with that with your distributive properties. And then other than that, it's the same thing as before. Multiply. And of course, the left side you just bring down. And then on the same side, combine whatever numbers are there. So we got a -10 and -24, and also combine any variables. So we got -35 plus 29. In general, you write the variables first, but not that it has to be that way, but in general, that's what people tend to do. So we have -35 plus 6 would be -29 in. Right. I'm not adding 35, I'm not subtracting 6. I'm just doing -35 plus 6. Okay, that part will come later. And then here we have -10 minus 24, which is -34. See, now it's just a two-step equation that you can solve just like we have been doing. So we want to get it down to a nice two-step equation we know how to solve. Okay. On the back, no, further down, this is just practice that we did in Khan Academy. Just know what direction the inequality goes. Know if it's open or closed. Yeah, do 10 in a row on that one. 14 through 17, you just have to write the inequality. So you have to look at this and say, okay, use any variable you want. Recognize it's 4, and then if it's going to the right and open, know that it's a greater than. You just have to write the inequality given the sign, by given the graph. Okay, lastly, then you go back to working. How do you know if you have a no solution or all reals? Okay. What was the key that lets you know if it's also all real solutions or no solution? Okay. So recall that if we had something like 1 equals 1, we said that it was all real solutions. Okay. So if it was a true statement, it was all real solutions. If we had something like 1 equals 0, we said, that's no solution because 1 is not equal to 0. It's a false statement. Now, emphasizing the true and the false right now for a good reason. So, on this, would this be true or false? Would this be all real solutions or would this be no solution? Yeah, that would be all reals. Because, yeah, 1 is less than 2. That's a true statement. Right? So some people get caught up in saying, oh, the same number, that means all reals. Different numbers, that means no solution, which is not quite correct. Because it doesn't work with inequalities. As long as you have a true statement, like 1 is equal to 1, that's true. Or 1 is less than 2, that's true. That's still all solutions. Likewise, if we had 1 is less than 1, is this true or false? That's false. Even though they're the same number, it's not a true statement. 1 is not less than 1. So that's no solution. You notice 1 equals 1 is all reals. 1 less than 1, that's a false statement, that's no solution. Now, of course, if I added just one little line right here instead of 1 less than or equal to 1, then that would be a true statement. Okay, so that would be all reals with the equal part, but without it, that's no solution. So think about true, false when it comes for inequalities and equations alike. Okay? And that part is just review. So you'll need this on the back. Make sure you write it down. And you have that. It's good information. And the back is just practice. This is going to be due probably